Hello and welcome to my review of The Benefactress and Exposure Cinematic Freedom by underground visionary filmmaker Guerrilla Metropolitana. This is his latest feature film and his very last, and it runs for an hour and 7 minutes, so let's dive in. The Benefactress is a direct act of mutiny towards modern culture and what mainstream deems as normal cinema. This is not a film for the normies or the faint of heart. There are ghastly images of abuse and torture, a terrifying plot in which we see two women on a rampage against another woman in a violent display of power dynamics, as well as a director with an intense and unconscionable vision. Let me be frank, this is a brutal assault on the viewer's senses. By the end of it, you will either hate it with every fibre of your being, or it will be accepted and loved as a film that will go down in history for its avid approach to cinema. The graphic images, the conception of the plot, the violence, deep psychological threads, as well as the filmmaker's sexual expression make this an insane and profound film. He demands his actresses to perform almost like they are pieces of a puzzle to manipulate in order for Metropolitana to get his vision and thoughts across. You have to view this from start to end. After the credits, as there is more to see and hear, and don't blink or you may miss the subliminal messages that are strewn throughout the film. The attention to detail is beyond excellent, which of course is a signature of Metropolitana's cinema. So at the beginning, we're scrolling through a written explanation of how the film came into existence and who Electra McBride is and why she's so important to this film. So Electra McBride is a middle-aged woman suffering with respiratory-related problems and is the wife of a famous American televangelist and Christian pastor who owns a TV channel on a religious video-on-demand digital platform. Electra McBride is semi-naked, wearing nothing but a gas mask and some sort of gimp outfit, meanwhile pleasuring herself as she watches the torture and assaults from the comfort of her home via video link from her cell phone. Part of the write-up at the beginning sets the scene and tone immediately. This is an account of the other side of the film industry and shows what an underground filmmaker can do with mainstream money and support from some of the same people who on the outside appear to be against unconventional cinema, but often behind closed doors and with fake names can and do actually contribute to the very existence of this type of filming. The introduction is the first indication that this film will push all of whatever boundaries are left to break. How far can a filmmaker's artistic freedom go? Which is foreshadowing the horrendous events that take place in what I would call the House of Horrors. We meet Juicy X, a voluptuous middle-aged woman sitting in front of a vagina dentata sculpture which was actually created by Metropolitan's good friend, Carmen. It's a horrific piece of art with jagged teeth and barbed wire and sharp bits sticking off it. So she stutters and is quite hesitant in her monologue, giving off the impression that she isn't all there in the head. What I found particularly interesting when I looked closely at the components of the film in detail is that Juicy X has a certain emotionless demeanour when it comes to acting out her violence towards the mystery woman. The immense cruelty of Juicy X is not only one of the film's most predominant features, it is also one of its most terrifying. However, I have to admit the most atrocious character is Electra McBride because she's financing this film under the provision that the actions be filmed for real and consequently so that the suffering is authentic. This clearly shows her level of evilness in a way that supersedes that acted out by Juicy X. Juicy X is going about her business in the house like it's just another normal day. The scene changes dramatically when Juicy X discovers that the mystery woman has escaped her confines. The first sexual assault is shown in techno-colour and the sound effects are very grueling and immediately makes the viewer's senses switch on, which of course is why the sound effects are so vital in this film. And it's another element that Metropolitana is famous for. It's painfully obvious that Metropolitana wanted to represent women in all their many facades like that and permeable and cruel nature of Juicy X. The mystery woman as the weak and vulnerable victim, the sadistic and controlling Electra McBride, And before the first sexual assault is over, Juicy X shaves the mystery woman's private parts, and her butterfly-shaped vagina with winged labia has become the long-sought-out ecstasy of Metropolitana, in which he searched for in all of his films but could not find. That is until he met the mystery woman. He calls it the perfect drug of passion, beauty, perfection, and profanity. The butterfly-shaped vagina to him is the most attractive, bizarre, and artistic image. At the same time, where the poetry of its beauty merges with the horror of sexual sadism. So at this stage in the film, we don't actually know who's holding the camera in the SOV shots, which is quite cool. But that is until suddenly we hear a male voice yelling, "No, no, 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 no," interrupting the scene. From here on, the violence becomes relentless towards the mystery woman. The director goes on to viciously assault her as a voiceover from the filmmaker says, "What you're watching is real. I am effing her. She is delicious." We cut to a scene of Juicy X in the kitchen gulping back a bottle of wine and crying to the screams of ecstasy from the filmmaker and screams of terror from the mystery woman. However, so we see a slither of humanity from Juicy X as she's sitting in the kitchen, and I had to wonder if it was guilt. However, the moment is very short-lived when she ups the ante with a gun, and the director proceeds to violate the victim further. Meanwhile, Juicy X is lying on the couch scrolling through her cell phone. This shows the total disconnect between what is right and wrong, and it also shows how far Juicy X has gone. She is pure evil incarnate. Metropolitana surely knows how to combine human intensity, evilness, and perversion into an extraordinary piece of art. The director's illicit behaviour is compelling and deplorable to watch at the same time. There is a certain nastiness coming through upstairs, in front of the mirror, and in the bathroom. There is almost something immature about the director compared to the viciousness of the woman. He runs on desires to fill his primordial urges and needs, whereas the women show total control, almost in a calculated approach to inflict the most horrendous wickedness upon their victim. He crosses boundaries as he delves into the far corners of human psychology and psychopathy at its worst. He cleverly and courageously integrates meta-cinema, guerrilla filming, underground tones, pornographic images, violence, horror, spontaneity, and human psychology into the film. However, we can't ignore the fact that the director is filming everything while he's pleasuring himself in front of the camera, almost like it's an extension of his arm. He continuously masturbates with a full erection in his hand for everyone to see. The SOV continues and is an enthralling way to create maximum tension. He demands a mystery woman to perform sexual acts, all the while she is screaming for it to stop, but in vain. This type of exposure is sure to make the audience gasp in horror, and we see how far this filmmaker will go to express himself as both the character in his own film and Guerrilla Metropolitana as the filmmaker, blurring the edges between Metropolitana playing the role as a sadistic director controlled by Electra McBride, and where the filmmaker Guerrilla Metropolitana begins and ends is quite hard to negotiate, as they seem to be blended together in a really fascinating way, entwined in this madness. Then the viewer is plunged headfirst into a deplorable scene of necrophilia. But it doesn't end there. The cleaner, played by Marie Antoinette de Robespierre, turns up to clean the house, and we get a insight into her personality as she travels from room to room and throws away all the sex toys and torture devices as if they mean nothing to her. Even though her role is as a minor character, we can see not only her disconnect towards the horrors of the house, but then she too goes on to take advantage of the mystery woman lying lifeless upon the floor. And that is where it should end, right? No. It continues on through till the credits, and there is a nasty surprise waiting at the end. We see an image of Guerrilla Metropolitana posing for a photo with a quote saying, "Only the enlightened taste the fruit of freedom, whilst in the valley of shit the useless sleep." After the credits, we can hear that filming has resumed with the next victim as the director screams for more. So, overall, The Benefactress, an exposure of cinematic freedom, can be watched in reverse and would ultimately have the same outcome for the viewer. The sound effects are terrible and visceral, with a variety of repetitive sound screams, sobbing, and violence are craftily placed to enhance the scenes. This film is for deep thinkers and not a mediocre audience. Those enlightened individuals who can appreciate the artistic quality of the film without prejudice or judgment, who can look past the intimate severity of this film as it is not for moralists or for gratuitous sensationalism. The filmmaker's vision is nothing more than artistic freedom. He doesn't follow the norms of the market, and he does not damper it down for those normies of the world. He does what he does because he can. We can clearly see that his cinema is an art form that should only be used by those who have something important to say. His cinema is strongly connected to his sexual identity, and it's not a form of art that can be taught in any film school. It is natural for Guerrilla Metropolitana. There are interesting colour changes from black and white to loud scenes of techno-colour, which goes hand in hand with the mood and tone changes. Metropolitana is a filmmaker who likes to experiment. The cinematographic shots, the SOV filming, angled, close-up visceral shots, diagonal, irregular movements, body horror images, upside-down shots, peephole viewing from first-person point of view, they all increase the appalling nature of the film into a variety of perspectives. This is how he manages to push against the rigid limitations of cinema. The way he manipulates the photographic work, creates sound effects, visual imagery, sensory and subliminal narration, and how they blend together is genius, to say the least. The more times you watch it, the better it is to capture the intricate details and subliminal hidden messages. Finally, both actresses, Juicy X and the Mystery Woman, perform in such ways to make this film as realistic as possible. Considering they both come from traditional acting backgrounds, they deserted every textbook of traditional acting in this film, deciding to be moulded like clay by the director, according to his specific vision of cinema, free from classical rules. They delivered their roles with professionalism, and the quality of their performance shows how talented they are. I commend their bravery in pushing themselves past any modesty or fear of backlash from the conservative people of the world. This is another example of independent films paving the ways for others to inspire to. I highly recommend this to anyone wanting to watch something profound and extraordinary. This is the final film from Guerrilla Metropolitana's cinema. He will be missed, and I do wish him the best in the future. This film does come with a trigger warning, as there are some very, very intricate, intimate, personal scenes. And I will be interviewing Guerrilla Metropolitana on my channel within the next week or two about the Benefactress and about the book. I am writing Guerrilla Metropolitana's cinema, a biography about his cinematic journey and his life, and yeah, so look forward to that in the future. So that has been my review of the Benefactress. I will leave a link to where you can purchase the film in the description, and that has been my review of the Benefactress, an exposure of cinematic freedom. And until next time, stay safe out there, and yeah, bye for now.